Right now, there is a company selling retired people a cabin on a ship for the rest of their lives, and a good number of them are selling the family house to pay for it. The brochure makes it look like the smartest money move of your life. No cooking, no cleaning, no lawn to mow, and no property tax bill waiting in the mailbox. A new country outside your window every morning, and a doctor just down the hall. The number they lead with sounds almost too easy to say no to. Here is what they leave off that brochure. The price you see is not the price you pay, not even close. And a few of the things that come free with a house on land, the ones that matter most after 65, do not exist at sea at any price. So before you call a realtor, give me the next 20 minutes. I will show you what a year aboard truly costs in dollars and in the things dollars do not fix, so you know which version of this dream is worth having and which one quietly takes your house and leaves you stranded in a foreign port. Let me start with the number, because the number is where the whole fantasy either survives or falls apart. Open any cruise line's website today and you will find sailings advertised at $65, $70, $80 a day. That is cheaper than a mortgage and cheaper than a lot of one-bedroom apartments. So people do the quick math in their heads, $80 times 365, and they arrive at something under $30,000 a year to live in paradise. That is the number that makes them start clearing out the garage. It is also completely wrong, and the cruise lines know it is wrong when they print it. That headline price is per person based on two people sharing the cabin. So the first thing that happens is it doubles. Then the taxes and port fees get added, which the headline never includes. After that come the daily gratuities. Then anything you actually do, eat off the main menu, drink, connect to the internet, step off in a port. By the time a real couple has lived a real week aboard, the honest daily number is often 2.5 to 3 times the sticker. That dreamy 30,000 becomes 70, 90, well over 100, depending on how you sail. The sticker price is bait, and the newcomer selling the house is exactly who it is designed to catch. There is a cost most people forget entirely, and it is not small. Every major line now charges an automatic daily gratuity, whether you ever hand a dollar to anyone or not. As of this year, the mass market lines sit around $17 to $19 per person per day, and the premium lines run higher. The line adds it for you, and it lands on your account like clockwork. Run that out over a full year. Two people, roughly $36 a day between them, 365 days, and you are past $13,000 in gratuities alone, before a single glass of wine, before one excursion, before you have done anything but exist on the ship. Yes, you can technically go to guest services and adjust them down. In practice, almost nobody does. And living aboard full-time while stiffing the crew who see you every day is a special kind of miserable. So treat that $13,000 as a fixed line in the budget from the very first day, right alongside the fare. Now, there is a version of this that genuinely comes in around $70,000 a year, and I want to be fair about it because it is real. There is a famous fellow who has lived aboard Royal Caribbean ships for over 20 years, and he has been open about how he keeps it down. So here is his actual recipe, and I want you to listen to what each ingredient costs you. He lives in an inside cabin, the windowless kind, the smallest room on the ship. He almost never gets off in port, so he pays for no excursions. He skips the specialty restaurants, the casino, and the drink packages. And critically, he stays in the Caribbean roughly 80% of the year because the Caribbean is the cheapest water to sail, and he chases whichever ship has the lowest fare that week, hopping from one vessel to the next. Do all of that, and yes, you can land near $70,000 a year. But read back the list. You are living in a box with no window, not leaving the ship, and circling the same warm sea over and over. The thing that made you want this in the first place, waking up somewhere new and beautiful, seeing the world, is the exact thing he gave up to hit that price. He did not buy the dream cheaply. He bought a much smaller dream and painted the big one's name on it. And most people picturing this life have never been told they would have to make that trade. So say you do not want the box in the Caribbean. You want the real version, the one from the brochure, the ship that actually goes places. Now the math turns hard the other way. The best guide we have is the Long World Cruises the Line sell, the 9 and 10 month voyages that circle the globe. Price one of those out per year per person, and even in a modest cabin, you are well over $100,000, and in a balcony, you are past $130,000 for one person. To their credit, those fares usually bundle in the gratuities, the drinks, the internet, even some tours, so the sticker is more honest than the daily bait. But look at the gap. The Stay in the Caribbean version and the See the World version are roughly double each other. You do not get both the low price and the wide horizon. You pick one, and if you are picking this life to see the world, you are picking the six-figure one. Here is a cost that lands hardest on exactly the person most likely to be watching this. If you are on your own sailing solo, almost everything I just said gets worse because cruise pricing is built for two. The cabin is sold by the room and the fare is quoted per person, assuming two of you are in it. So when one person sails alone, the line charges what they call a single supplement, and on most sailings that means you pay close to two full fares for one body in the bed. Some loyalty programs shave it down, but the base assumption never changes. The whole industry is priced for couples. A fellow I know who cruises alone by choice, not by loss, told me he budgets every single trip around paying for a roommate who does not exist, and it hits the newly single hardest of all, at the exact moment in life when someone is most likely to be looking at this dream as a way to fill a suddenly empty house. If you would be sailing solo, run your own numbers before anything else, because that supplement rewrites the entire budget before you have booked a thing. Now we leave the money for a moment because the next few costs are the ones that actually matter after 65, and they are not measured in dollars until it is too late. The brochure loves to mention that there is a medical center on board, a doctor, a nurse, right there if you need them. That part is true enough. It handles the small stuff well. A sprained ankle, a bad sunburn, a stomach bug, a heart scare stabilized just long enough to get you off the ship, but do not mistake it for a hospital. There is no MRI machine aboard, no specialist, no cancer care, and no way to manage the ongoing conditions most of us are already living with by this age. And then there is the part that stops people cold. Once that ship sails past the border, your Medicare stops with it. Original Medicare does not cover you outside the United States, full stop, except in a narrow window within about 6 hours of a home port. So a real medical event at sea, the kind that becomes more likely every year we age, is not just frightening, it is a bill you pay yourself. Every visit to that onboard center comes out of pocket. Someone I know came down with shingles on a 16-day sailing, nothing exotic, and even with the ship's own insurance plan, it ran into the thousands of dollars. Now stretch that exposure across 365 days at the age when things go wrong with no Medicare behind you, and the size of the gamble starts to show. Of everything here, this is the part that should decide it for you because it is the reason the cruise lines do not actually want you living out your final years aboard, whatever the residential brochures say. I once had dinner with a ship's officer who told me plainly that they were trying to gently encourage a resident to leave, not because the man had done anything wrong, but because he was aging and he had begun to need real help. He needed a hand getting around, and small daily assistance the crew are simply not there to provide, and the officer said the thing the whole industry knows and never puts in an advertisement. These ships are designed and staffed for short vacations, not for people to grow old on. The crew are hospitality workers. They are not nurses or caregivers, and they are not permitted to become them. The moment you cannot manage the bathroom on your own or the shower or your own medication, the moment you cannot stand up without a hand, you have crossed a line the ship cannot follow you over. And so kindly and apologetically, they begin easing you toward the gangway. Think about what that means against a nursing home, which I know is the grim comparison sitting in the back of everyone's mind here. A care facility is built to step up as you step down. When you decline, they add care. When your money runs out, in this country, Medicaid eventually catches you. A cruise ship does the opposite of both. It is wonderful precisely while you do not need it, and it shows you the door at the exact moment you finally do. If you sold the house to get aboard, that is the moment you discover you have nowhere to be shown to. Stay on health for one more minute because two boring things sink more of these dreams than any dramatic emergency ever will. First, there are your medications. That onboard center cannot write you a year of ongoing prescriptions for the things you take every single day. It is not set up for it, and it is not allowed to be. So people living aboard end up shipping their own medication ahead to future ports, timing boxes of pills to meet a moving ship in a country whose customs rules they barely know. It works, right up until it doesn't. One shortage, one delayed package, one early departure because a storm rerouted the ship and you are at sea without the drug that keeps you steady. For anyone on a heart medication, a blood thinner, or insulin, that is not an inconvenience. That is an emergency with a countdown on it. Second, and people laugh at this until it happens to them, there is no dentist aboard at all. A cracked tooth, an abscess, a lost crown, and you are waiting for the next port, then finding a dentist in a foreign city on a Tuesday and hoping the ship does not leave without you. The little routine maintenance that a normal life on land handles in an afternoon becomes a scramble across borders. Multiply that by every ordinary body thing that comes up in a year after 65, and it adds up to a life that runs on hope and good timing. You are probably thinking, fine, I will just buy good travel medical insurance and cover all of that. Try buying it because this is where a lot of these plans die right on the spreadsheet. Insuring a full year at sea at our age is either wildly expensive or simply not offered. The annual multi-trip policies people love usually cap each individual trip at 30 or 60 days and require you to return home in between, which you cannot do if the ship is your home. Many policies pile on age limits and exclusions for exactly the pre-existing conditions we are all managing. And the single most important line, the one nobody thinks about until the helicopter is overhead, is medical evacuation. Getting airlifted off a ship in the middle of an ocean and flown to a real hospital can cost more than a car, sometimes more than a house, and if you are not specifically covered for it, that bill is entirely yours. Ask anyone who has actually lived this way and they will tell you the same thing. Insurance is the hardest, priciest, most fragile part of the whole arrangement. So when you price your year, do not add up the fare and stop. Price in 12 full months of coverage because that is the line that keeps the fare from becoming the least of your problems. Here is a cost that is not really a dollar figure at all, and it catches people who thought they could truly cut the cord. You cannot become a person of no fixed address, not in the eyes of the people who send you money. Your Social Security, your pension, your bank, the tax authorities, your mail, even staying registered with a doctor back home, all of it still needs a permanent address in your home country. You cannot run your whole financial life from a cabin with a moving zip code. So the people doing this long-term keep a tether on land anyway. A relative's spare room they use as an official address, a mail forwarding service that scans the envelopes and emails them, a bank that will tolerate a customer who is never in the state. It works, but notice what it means? Even the person who sold everything to live at sea did not actually escape land. They just downgraded to the least useful version of it, an address they cannot sleep in while the house that used to be that address is gone. If you are going to keep a foot on shore, regardless, and you are, the question answers itself. Keep the foot that has a bed in it. Let us talk about the thing people think will be the easy part, the social life. The pitch is that you are surrounded by people, new faces every week, always someone to have dinner with, and all of that is genuinely true. It is also, for a lot of long-term residents, the loneliest part of the whole life. Here's how it actually works. Everyone around you is on vacation, and everyone around you leaves. Every single week, the ship empties out and refills with strangers. You are the one permanent fixture in a crowd that resets every 7 days. You make a lovely connection over dinner, and Saturday they fly home and you never see them again. The crew you grow fond of rotate off on their contracts. There is a specific ache to being surrounded and never truly known, and the people who have lived it name it more than any other regret. A crew member once told me the long-term residents were the ones the staff privately found the saddest, forever wanting to talk because there was nobody else aboard who ever stayed. And then there is the family. Your grandchildren are not at sea. The birthdays, the ordinary Sunday dinners, the being there when someone needs you, all of that now requires them to buy a flight and a cabin just to spend a few days with you. A woman I met at dinner one night, years into this life, had adored every minute of it, right up until her first great-grandchild arrived and she understood she was a very expensive plane ticket away from a baby she wanted to hold. The freedom is real, and so is the distance. Only you can say which one weighs more, but you should weigh them before the house is sold, not after. I need to tell you the least romantic truth about full-time ship life. The truth that anyone who has actually lived aboard will confirm and every newcomer refuses to believe. It gets deeply, surprisingly repetitive. The ports come around again. The same shows run for years, the same songs, the same jokes, until you could perform them yourself. The menus cycle on a loop you will have memorized by the second month. The people who live aboard mostly stop going ashore at all because they have seen these ports a dozen times, so the very thing that sold them the life becomes a place they no longer bother to visit. I did a long back-to-back stretch once myself, weeks on end without going home, and by about the 12th day, even the wonderful food had gone gray in my mouth, and the ship had started to feel like a very pleasant prison. Beautiful, comfortable, catered, and completely inescapable. Add the small physical realities, a cabin you can cross in 4 steps, a bathroom you nearly have to back into, walls thin enough to hear the hallway at 2 in the morning, and the postcard starts to feel a lot like a small apartment that happens to rock. A vacation is a break from your ordinary life. A year aboard becomes your ordinary life, and no life can stay a vacation, not even a very expensive one. Here is the cost that turns the whole fantasy on its head. You think you are buying freedom, and what you are actually doing is handing your entire daily life to a company that owes you almost nothing. The ship goes into dry dock, and you have to leave. The line charters it out for a private event, and off you go again. Sometimes it simply breaks down. A pandemic empties every ship on Earth, and you have nowhere to live, as thousands of people learned a few years ago. And if you think buying a permanent cabin protects you from all that, let me tell you what happened very recently to the people who did exactly that. A company launched a residential ship and sold cabins to retirees for their whole lives, many of whom had sold their homes to buy in, and then the ship could not sail. Technical problems kept it stuck at a dock in the United Kingdom for roughly 4 months. Their old homes were already gone. Their new home was tied to a pier going nowhere. And partway through the wait, the company stopped covering the living expenses of the residents stranded in that port, so they were paying for hotel rooms out of pocket while the thing they had bet their entire future on sat there broken. That is not a horror story I invented. That is the newest, shiniest version of this dream, and it stranded the very people who believed in it most. When the ship is your home, you do not own your life. The company that owns the ship owns it. Since the residential ships are what started this whole conversation, let me put the real numbers on them because they are not what the word own makes you picture. On these permanent resident ships, buying a cabin runs anywhere from around $100,000 for the smallest inside unit to several hundred thousand and well into the millions for anything with a view and some space. And then comes the part that gets buried under the word own. Buying it is not the end of the paying. There is a monthly fee on top, and on the newer lines, that fee runs around $2,000 per person every month for as long as you live there. For a couple, that is roughly $4,000 a month, close to $50,000 a year in fees, after you have already handed over 6 figures to buy the room. The older, more luxurious residential ship charges annual fees that start north of $100,000 and climb past $1 million for the big suites. So you sell your house, which was an asset that generally rose in value, to buy a cabin, which is an asset that floats, depreciates, and can strand you at a foreign pier. You can call it many things. Just do not mistake it for a smart replacement for owning your home. Now, I want to be genuinely fair because there is a real argument on the other side, and it is the one that convinces most people. The argument goes like this: a nursing home costs a fortune too, often more than a ship. So why not spend those years somewhere beautiful instead of somewhere sad? Put that way, it is hard to argue with. Nobody dreams of the facility with the silver hair and the walkers and the television always murmuring in the corner. The cruise is really a dream of not ending up there. But here is where that comparison breaks, and you have to see it clearly before you bet your house on it. The ship and the nursing home are not two prices for the same thing. They are two different things for two different stages of your body. The ship only wins while you are healthy enough not to need care at all. The nursing home exists precisely for the season when you do. Compare them on the day you are fit and mobile, and the ship looks like a steal. But you will not stay on that day forever. None of us do, and the whole purpose of a care facility is the day you cannot manage alone. On that day, the ship does not lower its price to match your need. It does the one thing we already saw. It points you back towards shore, and the money you saved is gone, along with the house you sold. So the honest framing is not cruise instead of a nursing home. It is cruise for the good years and have a real plan for the ones after. Anyone selling you the ship as your final address is selling you the years before the hard part and staying very quiet about the hard part itself. I do not want to leave you thinking the whole idea is a scam, because it is not, and I have met people living genuinely happy versions of it. So let me tell you honestly who this life is actually for. It fits someone in good health who has every reason to believe they will stay that way for a good while yet. It suits a person with real money behind them, not someone stretching a fixed pension to the snapping point, but someone for whom 100,000 a year is comfortable rather than everything they have. It works for someone who has made real peace with a distance from family, or whose family is scattered anyway. And above all, in every happy version I have personally seen, it fits someone who did not sell the house. The people who love this life almost always kept a home base, an anchor on land, often renting it out to help pay for the sailing, so that when the ship stopped working for them, and one day it will, they had somewhere of their own to go. That last part is not a small footnote. It is the entire difference between an adventure and a trap. So here's what I actually want you to do with all of this, because I am not trying to talk you out of the sea. I have loved the sea my whole life. I am trying to talk you out of the realtor. Do not liquidate a life to test a theory. If this dream has its hooks in you, rent it long before you would ever dream of buying it. Book a long voyage, a back-to-back run of sailings, a segment of a world cruise, a slow repositioning crossing where the ship drifts from one continent to another over a couple of glorious weeks. Live aboard for a month or two or three. Find out how your body feels by week 2, how the food tastes by week 6, whether the endless kindness of strangers fills you up or wears you out. Do all of that with your house still standing behind you and your Medicare still waiting on the shore. If you come home and the land feels like a cage and the sea is calling you back, wonderful. Now you know, and you can plan the real thing with your eyes open and a home base kept. But you will know because you tested it, not because a brochure with a $65 sticker talked you into signing away the one asset holding your whole retirement up. The dream is real and the dream is rentable. The single smartest thing a person can do with a dream this expensive is try it on before they wear it out the door. So I will leave you with one honest question. If the idea of retiring to sea has ever had a real grip on you, where did it let go, or is it still sitting there unfinished? Drop the moment it stopped making sense, or the one thing still pulling you toward the water, and let us have that conversation properly.